My instant reaction is, oh, how quickly they forget. Right? How quickly they forget. As the Pope would say, no Clark, no spark. Caitlin Clark is now 2 years removed from women's college basketball. Out of sight, out of mind, women's college basketball now is. Never existed for the casual fan. We are back to those levels of not caring about women's college basketball. Folks, I didn't care about women's college basketball until I heard of Caitlin Clark. Guilty as charged. And I didn't care. ESPN didn't care. Fox Sports didn't care. Independent media didn't care. Random podcasters didn't care. They just didn't care.
That was Cori Close, the head coach of UCLA women's basketball, and she finally said out loud what everyone else in the sport keeps carefully dodging and dancing around. After coaching the only ranked women's basketball matchup of the entire day, only just a single media member showed up to ask questions. One person in a room designed for dozens, and instead of brushing it off with diplomatic platitudes or corporate talking points, Close did something radical. She put the spotlight directly on the sports media establishment for quietly, systematically, walking away from women's college basketball the moment it became inconvenient, and what she exposed will make you question everything you've been told. Caitlin Clark, leaving for the WNBA, forced an uncomfortable, undeniable truth into the open that nobody in the industry wants to acknowledge. 2 years ago, when Clark was launching those impossible logo three-pointers at Iowa and rewriting the record books, ESPN could not stop talking about the women's game. It was everywhere. Studio shows broke down her shooting form in obsessive detail. Daily segments hyped up every single matchup like it was the Super Bowl. Coverage ran non-stop like it was appointment television. Must-see TV that you couldn't miss. Now, fast forward to January 2025, just 2 short years later. Cori Close is standing in a nearly empty media room, staring at rows and rows of unused chairs, trying to figure out where all that supposedly genuine attention disappeared to. The answer is painfully obvious. Even if nobody in the media wants to say it out loud, she's absolutely not wrong about what happened.
College football playoff, there's hockey, and there's what's that other league? Oh yeah, the NFL is taking, there's some other things that media would rather do. They saw Caitlin Clark, they saw the hype, they saw the attention, they jumped on board. You guys really bought into the fact that they cared about you. What did they say in Temptation? Nobody care about you, Otis! They're here for me!
Before Caitlin Clark's explosive junior year at Iowa, most casual sports fans barely even knew women's college basketball was happening at all. Ratings were consistently low, media coverage was rare and sporadic, and the audience was mostly composed of die-hard fans and people with direct personal connections to the teams playing. Then Clark arrived on the national scene, started systematically shattering scoring records that had stood for decades. And suddenly, everyone, media members, casual fans, acted like they had been locked in and passionate about women's basketball the whole time. But the timeline tells a very different story. Look at the timeline closely and carefully. During Clark's senior season in 2024, Iowa games averaged more than 2 million viewers, consistently numbers that were unheard of in women's college basketball. ESPN dedicated full studio segments to breaking down her shot selection and decision. Fox Sports ran daily features about her impact. Independent podcasters who had literally never touched the sport before, who had zero history covering women's basketball, suddenly spoke like longtime insiders and experts. The national championship game pulled in an absolutely staggering 18.7 million viewers, making it the most-watched basketball game, men's or women's, in 5 full years. Now UCLA plays a ranked opponent in a competitive game, and only one reporter shows up, not because the game lacked quality, not because UCLA is weak, but because the player who pulled casual fans in is no longer there. The excuses from the media come fast and predictable. It's the college football playoff, they say. It's the NFL. It's NHL games taking attention. And to be completely fair, those major events do pull significant attention and ratings. But that convenient explanation falls apart completely the moment you look closer at the actual timeline. All of those competing leagues existed during Caitlin Clark's run, too. The NFL was still absolutely dominating Sundays in 2024. College football still owned Saturdays with massive audiences. Hockey was still on national television, competing for viewers. None of that stopped women's college basketball from finding a massive, engaged audience when Clark was on the floor. The difference was never about competition for attention from other sports. The difference was that one singular player was powerful enough to make millions of people care deeply about a sport they had been completely ignoring for years. And the second she graduated, the entire ecosystem snapped right back to where it was in 2022. Juju Watkins at USC was strategically positioned by the media as the next torch carrier to continue the momentum. Then the devastating injury hit and derailed that narrative. Paige Bueckers was expected to extend the momentum after being drafted and keep eyes on college basketball, but she's now in the WNBA playing professionally. That shift matters tremendously, and we'll get to exactly why in a moment, because it exposes how the industry actually treats women's basketball once the spotlight moves on to the next thing. Kim Mulkey is standing right in the middle of that harsh reality right now, and what's being exposed is brutal. This is not a shot at Mulkey or her program, it's a clear snapshot of the moment we're in. What's being acknowledged now is what most people quietly knew the whole time but refused to say publicly. A huge chunk of the audience did not genuinely care about women's college basketball until Caitlin Clark made it impossible to look away. The numbers don't lie, and they're devastating. In 2022, before Clark's breakout junior season, the average women's college basketball game drew roughly 400,000 viewers, respectable but not mainstream. By her senior year, in 2024, Iowa's regular season games were pulling between 2 and 3 million viewers consistently. But here's the part that rarely gets said out loud in media circles. When Iowa wasn't playing, other programs did not see the same dramatic jump. Viewership across the rest of the sport stayed mostly flat. People weren't tuning in for women's college basketball as a product. They were tuning in for Caitlin Clark as a phenomenon. And the media understood that reality perfectly from day one. Coverage didn't explode because executives suddenly discovered the quality of the game or had some epiphany about women's sports. It exploded because Clark delivered clicks, views, and engagement metrics. The coverage created the powerful illusion that the sport itself had crossed into the mainstream when in reality one player had. And now that illusion has completely shattered. Meanwhile, Dawn Staley has South Carolina undefeated and ranked #1 in the nation. Kim Mulkey has LSU competing at the highest level with incredible talent. Paige Bueckers is beginning her WNBA career with the Minnesota Lynx. Flute J. Johnson is one of the most marketable players in college basketball right now. The answer to why attention has dipped so dramatically is simple and uncomfortable. No, people are not really watching at the same level anymore. South Carolina's games are averaging around 600,000 viewers, which is solid and respectable until you remember Iowa was consistently tripling that number with Clark on the roster. LSU's numbers look similar. The interest drop is real, measurable, and undeniable, and it has absolutely nothing to do with quality of play. South Carolina is dominant and well-coached. LSU is talented and entertaining to watch. But dominance and talent were never what drove the Clark-era ratings to historic heights. Star power did, and it was one specific star. For anyone who claimed Clark was just the face of a rising tide that would lift everything, the tide is gone. The boats are stuck in the sand, and coaches like Cori Close are left wondering how the water vanished so fast. That logo situation says everything you need to know. It's the perfect metaphor for how the industry approaches women's basketball. Minimal effort, maximum extraction, and the cycle continues. Asterisk,